Welcome to Faith Fondue, a podcast featuring author and speaker Haley DeMaria and teacher and blogger Ann Strickers. Faith Fondue will feature a melting pot of topics ignited by a flame, our faith, and guided by the Holy Spirit. It is the week of October 31st, the 31st week in Ordinary Time. And Ann, it's been a while, and it's Halloween, but most importantly, it's also our kickoff to a month of Thanksgiving. Ann, how are you?
I'm great, Haley. It is good to be back. I'm glad you were able to audibly speak where our audience and I can both hear you. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We will be talking about a lot of things. I mean, between water polo and golf, Halloween, All Saints, All Souls, and I'd like to sneak in James Bond, Daniel Craig, and our farewell to him as 007. So, Haley, what happened? What do we got?
So, first of all, I was actually thinking about this right before we logged on. I think so many of my openings over the past month or so have talked about baseball, so we can follow up on that real quick. Very sorry about your San Francisco Giants, losing in the seventh game to the Dodgers. The Dodgers then, of course, lost to the Braves.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Final game of the series, I should say.
Very good. Very good. Yes.
And now, we're potentially one game away from having a World Series winner. So lots happened in the baseball world, but we are wrapping up that major league season. Basketball started, which is exciting in my children's world. My son's been very up to date on all the happenings in the NBA. That's probably one sport you'd think I would follow well, having had two NBA players in my family, but I need to brush up on that lingo if we're going to talk about it a lot. And yes, down at the high school level, water polo is wrapping up for my son. And, of course, it's his senior year season. And it's been really fun to watch him play. They've had some really solid games recently. They've lost a few, won most of them. But that's bittersweet in the time of a high school athlete's life, as well as as a coach. So we are soaking it all in, literally and figuratively, enjoying all the games, but also, of course, enjoying being at the pool. So a lot going on. I don't know if I've just cheered too hard at water polo matches, or as a friend reminded me that internalizing stress can cause your voice to go away, but boy, Ann, I shared with you last week a video of my voice, and as you know, it was barely audible. So we apologize for a couple-week hiatus, but I could not talk. So someone was telling me that I needed to slow down and shut my mouth. But I'm glad
honestly,
to be back.
I had no idea that there could be a relationship between stress and the voice. I mean, so as a teacher, or, I taught some lessons for years. At the beginning of the school year, or when I started in the summer teaching some lessons, I always lost my voice because you're using it so much from not. But that's really interesting, because I am interested in the impact that stress has on people, and even just young people in particular, because they talk about young people today and the amount of stress that they carry. So I hope, I know you took good care of yourself, and I'm glad that it's funny because on the other side of this conversation, Haley, in golf, you really support the people you're playing with, because it's technically you versus the game, not you versus somebody else. And one of my favorite things to say to somebody when I play with them is I'll make a really good putt and they won't say anything. And I'll say, did you lose your voice? Meaning, because I didn't hear anything. I'm waiting for the compliment, So I will think of that a little differently now, because some people literally do lose their voices.
Well, they do, and that's actually an interesting. I'm not a golfer, as you and everyone knows, but I've never heard that about golfers complimenting each other like that. I guess that's the way we should play the game and play every game.
It's interesting, because you're not, it's funny because in the rules, you're actually not supposed to yell at somebody else's ball. Like a golfer would say, go, or get right. Technically you're not supposed to do that, but you are supposed to acknowledge, good shot, nice strike. There's all this language that goes with it, and it's fun. But, I played with two. Now, when I say older, you always have to be, careful with that. My friend and I played with two late men in their late 60s, and they were so good. And they had such a great love of the game. And I was telling them about my assistant coach, who was 73. And he's just a total jokester, but he grew up very good player, good lessons, but like just all his insights in the game. I didn't realize what I was saying about him. And after the game, after the round, Bob, the guy that was in my group, he said, Ann, I'd really like to play with your assistant coach sometime. He sounds really, really remarkable. And I was like, oh my God, it was such a compliment. And he's like, we'll get you and Charlie. And I was like, that's so cool. Like, that says a lot about Bob for picking up on it. I'm just talking about Charlie because he's my assistant coach and he's great. But, other people respect that. And I was thinking about other sports when there's kind of that mutual like understanding and respect for the game that, it's just really, that's respect, acknowledgement. Right. So that was fun.
Acknowledge it. It is. And I'm reminded of a story that happened to me this weekend that was one of the most meaningful gestures that I have ever experienced. And it is that acknowledgement of love of the game. So I have a good friend that I've known for a long time. Her son plays water polo for another team, another high school team. He's not, I don't want to say he's not very good. He's not one of their stronger players. She would tell you that. She'll introduce herself as Charlie's mom, and Charlie rides the bench. Charlie couldn't be a nicer kid. I've known him since he was 3. But a really great family. So we played against Charlie's team in the championships this weekend, and they had a much stronger team. They're undefeated. They won the whole thing. We knew it was going to be a battle. Our team, Edwards School played really well. St. Joe, they played probably one of the best games they've played, but they lost. But before the game, Charlie's mom, my friend Jenny, who knows how much I love watching Edward play, brought me flowers. And just, purple flowers, because she that's the color of St. Joe. And she also knows, my history, with Notre Dame swimming, and she and I have a connection that way too. And just, the history of the bus accident. So right in the middle of the flowers was a yellow rose, which always has represented, Megan and Colleen and what we, our remembrance there. And she brought them over to me before the game, and she said, I know this is the last time that, we'll both be together watching our sons play, and I know how much you've loved Edward play. And it really caught me off guard. I've never thought of acknowledging another parent's love of watching their child. I'm not even sure I knew how much, I know how much I love watching Edward play. I'm not sure everybody else knew. But honestly, Anne, it was really one of the most meaningful things anyone has ever done, was just that acknowledgement of, and, I've had my own career. I don't need any sort of anything when it comes to Edward or either of my kids and what they do.
Sure.
But I don't need that acknowledgement of, either being Edward's mom or anything. But it wasn't even that. It was just a sort of a mom to mom, understanding of, I know this is coming to an end for you, and that's a loss. But anyway, it will make me just think of other ways that you can reach out to people, and just one more ways that we can recognize and acknowledge, things that are important to us. But anyway, so yes, sometimes people pick up on things and you don't even realize it. And those thoughtful gestures can really be meaningful.
Yeah, I agree. It was fun. It was a fun day. So.
I bet. So it is Halloween. Yes, I have been eating candy corn.
Well, I thought of you because I thought, is this something that extends through November?
Nope.
Or is it a hard fast October 31?
It is a hard stop, no doubt.
Okay.
In fact, I try to not buy candy corn before October 1st.
Okay.
Because once I buy it and it's in the house, I will eat it. A 3-pound bag came home about 3 weeks ago, and I opened it, took a handful, and said, Jamie, you got to hide this because I can't eat all this now. So that bag came out on Friday, and I would tell you it's just about done. So I will not buy any more. I love it. People love it or hate it. It's kind of like Notre Dame. There is no middle ground when it comes to candy corn. So
Yeah, I kind of feel that way a little bit about costumes,
Mm,
and like dressing up. And, I have to be honest, some people are so creative and make it so much fun. And I don't know. I just, it's not my wheelhouse. And a friend who's the principal at Regis Jesuit in Denver, he lives for just surprising the kids. He has a great spirit, and like is all over this stuff. And he was like, I think you should write a podcast. I mean, like not a podcast. He probably wants me to talk about it on our podcast, but he said you should probably blog about blending sports and Halloween or costumes in general. Send me your Halloween pics. And I'm like, you're not going to get any because there's none to see. Like we had Spirit Week at school last week because it was homecoming, which I don't know when homecoming became HOCO, but it's hashtag HOCO21, hashtag HOCO, whatever. But that is what it is now. So I don't want to get sidetracked with HOCO, but I mean, it was Spirit Week every day and every teacher. I mean, so many of the teachers were great. And I just showed up, I'm not even joking, in like normal clothes, and I just didn't feel very spirited.
is there a bah humbug version of
I know.
Halloween?
I was waiting for that, right? That's what it kind of sounds like, but I just can't. I don't know. I don't have the mental energy to get into this costume planning, and I can't tell you why. So I don't need a diagnosis, but I appreciate that people want it. Jimmy, I will not be writing a blog post on costumes and Halloween. My mom said there's certain things that are recommended that kids don't wear this year. Like, for example, don't dress up as a hobo. And I was thinking about that. Okay, it's essentially a homeless person, right? But like for some reason, the hobo seems like much more benign, or just kind of like, I don't know, part of American lore.
Right.
So
well, and when we were
and
when we were growing up, it wasn't a negative. I mean, maybe it should have been, but it was more of a caricature as opposed to a person. Yes. But
and maybe that's part of the problem is that it's
right, and I'm not saying that's right either. I'm just yeah. We are actually big Halloween people. This is the first Halloween we can remember for a number of circumstances that we have not done anything. But that's okay. All things kind of shift and change, and we're figuring out what our new groove was. But normally we are decked out head to toe. We did postpone our Halloween celebrations at the school I work at till tomorrow because we had this crazy storm on Friday that pretty much canceled everything. So tomorrow I will be dressing up as Mr. Potato Head. You will be. It's a not a reused costume. What would you call that? Repurposed costume. We were Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head a couple years ago. So that we have bins of costumes in our basement. So we are, and we do have Spirit Week coming up at our school, and I will be. I'm on the opposite side as you. So I'm going to come up with a hashtag Halloween bah humbug term. And I'll let you know what it is. But here's what I'll say, Ann. There's no judgment. As long as, you're not judging people who do dress up like, oh my gosh, you're 48 years old, Haley. Why would you still dress up for Halloween?
Oh, I think go for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if other people don't want to, kudos to you. It's less time, money, and effort.
I mean, you should see the detail. And then, a friend of mine at this one school said, we haven't talked about protocols and rules at all, but we've talked for hours about Halloween costumes. And I remember, at my last school, one of my colleagues was so funny. She would tell the students, she's like, I don't want any costume where you can insert the word sexy in front of it. No sexy nurse, no sexy librarian.
No sexy candy corn. There is a sexy candy corn costume.
No, there's not.
Oh yeah, I'll send it to you.
There's not.
I don't have it. Goodness. I don't have it, but.
That is wonderful. That's actually a game changer. So I think that is such a play on everything. I love it.
But here's what I'll tell you, Ann. First of all, two things. One, I saw so many Ted Lasso costumes this year. I'm sure you did too. So I thought, yes. I thought of you when I saw that. But here's
was that adults or kids? Haley?
Adults.
Yeah, because with the kid, I was like, I don't think you were watching the show. So I was kind of like, why are you Ted? Yes. Okay.
But
so I'm down with that.
But I agree with you. There are some people who are so clever and and super talented in terms of physically making the costumes, and group costumes where you come up with themes. I mean, all of that.
Yep.
We've been into that for
Spice
years.
Girls, my coworker,
Right.
she was, yeah, cinnamon, and one was cardamom. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
I mean,
they all,
we have a whole middle school staff that's coming, in Harry Potter gear tomorrow, and they're playing Quidditch during PE. I mean, there's just a lot
Mhm.
you could do with it. But I was thinking about this last week. We have taken away from kids so many opportunities to be creative, right?
Mm.
Academics, you and I teach in private schools. So, there's a little more flexibility there. But when you look at public schools and the set curriculums and the
Mm.
standards that they have to reach,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
there's so much technology and video games, and they're not, outside wandering, and, that whole idea of what makes a child, their creativity,
Yeah.
but
No.
we haven't quite lost it yet in
Yeah.
Halloween, and I hope we
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's such a optimistic and hopeful view. I mean, I immediately went dark and went to the costumes that you buy. But I mean, that was a tension when we were growing up too. It's like,
Sure.
the costume that you buy versus, making your own. So that's nothing new.
I had to make my own.
And I mean, it's okay to have a hybrid. I think you can have
Hmm.
props and, thrift stores and like Goodwill, they get really busy at this time of year, just to speak to your point about creativity. So yeah, I think that's a great insight. And it leads me to my next question. Okay, scary movies, spooky movies.
No.
Like, can you do it? Are you into it? Is that,
So I don't, if you mean scary, like
we're talking like,
Friday the 13th, Fright
yes,
Night,
Halloween,
Halloween, nope. Nope.
Psycho. I mean, what about the classic,
Mm, Psycho
The
is the
Birds,
birds. So
Alfred Hitchcock?
the birds is that's more psychological thriller,
Yes.
not like scary jump out at you with a chainsaw thriller.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
into that. I mean, one of
Yeah.
my all-time favorite movies is Silence of the Lambs. You want to talk about kind of freaky?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
freaky, but that's dark.
Yeah. It is dark.
And the birds,
This,
I don't want to say I loved it. I liked the birds. I would watch again.
okay.
A little
Because
terrifying.
this my KNBR, the sports radio I listen to, obviously the Giants flagship station, as well as the Niners. The main guy, Brian Murphy, who he said to his son, who's maybe 10, and he's like, it's time. It's time that you start watching some thrillers, some
Mm,
scary movies, because they were talking about Halloween. And I just thought that was kind of interesting.
yeah.
I know the psych teacher at my old school, one of his assignments was to watch a scary movie. You had to watch it alone. He had all this
Oh,
criteria. And I should have been like, I mean, I get it, but I want to know, like, what is it revealing about, you know,
why? Right?
a
Like what's,
person?
yeah.
Yeah. Like he had that. I just never asked the question, but I thought that was super interesting. So,
Yeah, it is.
yeah. I mean, last Saturday, I did see the final James Bond of the Daniel Craig era. It was dark in some ways, and
Mm-hmm.
people have criticized Bond in recent years because the evil character, right? There's the sense of, he's MI6. He's basically the United Kingdom CIA, right? He has a license to kill, right? Like he's obviously employed because there's darkness in the world. So the villain, like in reality, if you want to name our villains today, it's real, right? And they're just
Right.
saying it's too dark. So you had mentioned dark about some of these other films or psychological thriller, but it was great. And people are very passionate about Bond. I mean, they have, it's its own thing, right? It's its
Yep.
own
Yep.
like total
Yes.
category of like thrilling. Sure, there's going to be good, be evil, but then there's catchy nets with like the technology or what he's able to survive and the women and all of it.
Well,
So
there's so much commentary there, right? There's the whole Bond girl thing. There's the
yeah,
people who are Sean Connery Bond people.
yep. Roger
You know,
Moore, Timothy
exactly.
Dalton,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan, but yeah, Daniel Craig. Kudos to him. He was a wonderful Bond. He really
Yeah, he
was,
really was.
and he loved it. Yeah. So
And
I
like all
won't get,
good
there's some
things, they come to
spoilers
an
in the
end.
movie, so I will not say much more for our listeners who have not seen it, other than they should go see it. And yeah, there's some reveals, but it's also open-ended. You don't necessarily know
Okay.
XYZ. I will personally say I'm not ready for a female James Bond. I'm not interested in that.
Yep.
I
There,
don't
I've heard
want
that
Jane
debate.
Bond. We already kind of have that. Wonder Woman or, Charlie's Angels. We're good.
Or how about come up
Yeah.
with your own female character? Why does she have to
Yeah.
be a female James Bond? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's
So
certainly a lot of, holidays coming up where families will be getting together, and that tends to be a lot, when people go to the movies and
yeah,
so.
there was actually a half hour, 30 minutes.
Oh, well, I
That's
love
how long
that
it
too.
lasted. Yeah. It was, I have
A
to say
little
it was
much.
too many previews.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm down with 15, but 30 minutes, it was like, whoa.
That's a quarter of a movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You got it.
moving on to spiritual stew, it is Halloween. It is All Hallows Eve,
Yes.
October 31st. Tomorrow is All Saints Day. It's also, I'm going to try to not get my Spanish wrong, but Dios de la Muerta. Is that right? Dia de la Muerta?
Dias de los
Muertos.
Muertos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Which I've always, that's celebrated at our school. That's, in Spain. It's just, I love learning about really the religious and cultural meanings behind a lot of these holidays. But one of the things that I've always loved about, All Saints Day, All Souls Day, of course, I went to Xavier. I was not Catholic when I was there, but, and was not Catholic for a number of years when I was an alum from Xavier, but they always send a postcard out to all of their alumni, and it has, it's self-addressed. You send it right back to them, but you can write on the back people that they will pray for, tomorrow during Mass.
All month. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I think it probably came to me my second year out, when I was at Notre Dame and certainly had just lost Megan and Colleen. And I have written their name on that card for, at this point, almost the past 30 years. And I don't know why that's so meaningful to me. It's so simple. It's so easy. As the years have gone on, more names have been added to the list, certainly. But it's such a nice gesture that connects me back to, really such an important place in my life. And I think for most, young girls, women who graduate from there, it does and it should. I don't know why more schools don't do it. I know we've seen kind of a digital version that comes from Notre Dame. But there's something about that postcard and me writing their names down and sending it back and knowing that card is on the altar. That's still pretty meaningful to me. So I look forward to that. It's a meaningful part of this holiday tomorrow. And then, it reminds us to reflect on people that we've lost and important people in our lives. And, certainly lost my coach this year, Tim Welsh. So our coach's wife, Jackie, is an artist. She's a very talented artist. And she really is into a lot of Latino art. She has, and I'm going to need to look up the exact word. It's an ofrenda. Ofrenda,
Yeah.
is that right? So
Ofrenda, yeah.
she's got this
we talked about this at school.
beautiful altar that's dedicated
Ofrenda?
to
Is it
Tim
ofrenda?
right now. Yeah,
Yeah.
she sent me a picture of it. I'll make sure to post it. But I love that. That's so, it was just a reminder again for me, that it's just a beautiful way to honor someone in a meaningful way
It
to
is.
her. It's such a beautiful way to honor anyone, but I
Yeah.
also know that that's such a meaningful part of her own, artistic
Totally.
background and her love. And while, Tim loved it because she did, it was not necessarily who he was, but she's remembering him in a way that's beautiful to her. So that was kind of a neat thing that happened over the weekend. And then, of course, one of my teammates who I swam with, very sadly lost a daughter about 4.5 years ago now. And she was honored on campus, with an award for much of the work that she's done for children's rights, children with disabilities, a lot of work that she's done with her daughter who had significant disabilities. And it was also a way for me to remember and reflect, just reflect on, the reminder that there's so much goodness in the world that also stems from so much sadness. So I was not able to attend this award ceremony for her. That was very hard for me. I really wanted to be there. I sent my son James. But I also had to remind James, this is a celebration of so much goodness that she has given to the world. I said, but you have to remember this
Yeah.
celebration stems from the most devastating event that she, my
Yeah.
teammate has lived through, which is the loss of a child. That's something that most of us can't understand and hope that we never do. But it brings us back to All Souls Day, or tomorrow, and what that really means. And it's for most of us who have this faith, it means that they're physically they've left us, but their spirit is always here. They're our remembrance of them and what we carry with them is very much present. So I will take that with me, this week as we move through tomorrow. Attending mass and having all of the people who have come and gone before us and the impact that they've had on our lives.
Yeah, I just as a small nuance today at Mass, they reminded us that tomorrow, the Feast of All Souls, is still a holy day. It's just not a holy day of obligation. So I appreciated the distinction.
Yes.
Because it falls on a Monday, and that's a whole other conversation. Like, should we have thrown in, the dish towel and just make it easy for people? Like, does it compromise, our sense of, I don't know, you're meeting people where they're at. So anyways, we're having mass at school on the 2nd, and we did, and I did just look it up because I showed it in class. It is ofrenda with an E-N, like an offering. And 2 of my faculty members shared the ofrenda altars that they have in their house. And one of them I just loved because it was her grandfather, a picture of him, and she put next to it a cup, and in the cup are coffee beans. And because it's not just visual, but it's like, our other senses. So the smell of coffee reminds her of her grandfather because he loved coffee. And then with her grandmother, her favorite color was turquoise. So she put a turquoise kind of like sash around the picture. So yes, I think that's a wonderful tradition. And we too will have, it's in our chapel at school all month. So it is a meaningful way to remember our loved ones. And it's interesting because I saw Jesus Christ Superstar last week. It's at the Golden Gate Theater. It's the 50-year anniversary of the musical written by Andrew Lloyd Webber. And there's always, new renditions of it. And, it's really powerful because it's basically the, trial, conviction, and murder of Christ. And, as much as the music is meaningful, you also walk out of there and you're like, this just didn't have to happen. Like, this is, there's also what's revealed in scripture, but it's heavy, it's like, it's hard. He did die, and people really felt that loss. They were scared. They didn't know what was going to happen. So, an important story, I think, to hear. And it's just another way to convey Jesus's life story through a musical. So I'm glad I was able to go. And for people who haven't seen it, like, I think it's great. I actually think there's so much to interpret.
It's great.
Right? Through dance, through music.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's challenging. It's so many different things, right? But what a great way to kind of think about, again, one of the hardest but most real parts of, Jesus of Nazareth's life, so to speak.
But it's so interesting. It's interesting you say that in the context, or just following, the comment you made about the difference between a day of obligation or a holy day and a holy day of obligation, because your comment of, we could talk about that, because there are people who do think that the Catholic Church is becoming a little too convenient, or becoming sort of adapting to the times, or whatever, however you want to call it, it's changed. It's not the Catholic Church that it was 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, or certainly 1,000 years ago. Well, I don't think we want to be the Catholic Church that was 1,000 years ago. That was kind of a mess too. So, but then you look at something, like Jesus Christ Superstar. There are some of those songs I just love as songs, right? They are catchy. Yeah. I'm probably going to be humming one for, the rest of the evening because I love it. And I haven't thought about it in a long time.
Yeah.
And, there are many people for whom, or for many people who would find that very offensive, right? You made a
Mm,
musical out of Jesus's,
mm,
life or
mm,
existence. How
mm,
offensive or sacrilegious is that? And yet,
mm.
what a great tool to share his story in a way that might reach people that we would never reach, otherwise never reach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting. I am a convert, so I don't have a lot of sort of the very traditional thoughts and beliefs that I was raised
Hmm.
with as it relates to Catholicism. So I guess I do appreciate the ways that the church has adapted to
Mm.
reach more people. So, maybe tomorrow isn't a holy day of obligation, but that for people, for whom they want it to be a holy day of obligation,
Yeah.
they can go to
Right.
mass. There's
Yeah.
no,
It's true.
it kind of
They
takes
they're
the
offering it. They mentioned that at
right.
8 a.m. and it'll be with that spirit. And you're totally right. Yeah.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
and for those who might, just kind of take one step back because they're being told they have to go and they don't want to go or they can't go or they need to get their kids to school and then they have to work. It just takes away that level of judgment of you
Pressure.
didn't go.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
not,
Right.
who am
Yeah.
I to kind of make things up? But
Yeah.
it's interesting because there is so much change, and I know change is hard. But I also know it's okay to meet people where they are sometimes because otherwise you're not going to get them at all.
Yeah. Keep moving forward is what, we were talking about this weekend. Because somebody was talking about a project at my club. Should we go forward with it? And his attitude was, you got to keep moving forward. I mean, you can't look back. I mean, can't be stagnant too is the other thing. Like the world is moving ahead. We're going. It's going to happen whether we want it to or not. So where are we on this? But one question I have as you were speaking is I know, for example, Romero in the movie Romero, for him to be, Oscar Romero, like reawakened his faith. He was a lapsed Catholic and he was really like so moved by this man's life and how he served other people that he came back to the church. And so I was wondering, I did wonder about this. The lead for Jesus Christ Superstar had such an incredible vocal range and just a fun like descriptor of him. Again, it's applied to modern times. So he kind of had a man bun, like George Kittle, for people who know what he looks like. He has
Right.
like shaved head in the back, but then like half his hair with like a bun and then a beard. And this guy, whose name is Aaron Levine, had the man bun and it kind of worked, and Aaron Levine, I'm like 95% sure is Jewish. Like, and, Jesus was a Jew. So I'm thinking, what's that like being a Jew? And like, obviously in 2021, not in 2000 where, there's debate, but, what's it like to be a Jew and to play Jesus of Nazareth, and how does it move him? I mean, I would imagine it would. I can't answer those questions, but I would like to know.
Right.
So, yeah. Um,
Well, lots to think
Interesting.
about as we move,
Totally.
move away from Halloween, All Hallows Eve, and move into this month of November. And really, I feel like we are moving into holiday season from Halloween till New Year's Eve. It's going to just fly, hopefully not cause too much stress so that I don't lose my voice again.
Yes, that would be a good thing. Yeah.
But but it's
No.
but it's going to be busy. But I also, I love kind of this. I haven't decided quite what I'm going to do yet. I've got a few more hours. There's always the no shave November, Thanksgiving, something
That's for
daily.
men though,
I
right?
know it is just men, although it'd be nice for women too. But
Right.
but I know a lot of people try to do like a something they're thankful for every day, and it's not.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be a little too much on social media. I think it can be a little over the top, and I don't want to say disingenuine, but because I probably shouldn't be judgy like that. But I don't know. I need to really think about what I want this month to
That's
be because
interesting.
I do
Yeah.
believe in Thanksgiving being a way we live and not just one day of the year. So that's
Yeah.
really my spiritual stew for the week is to kind of
Yeah.
chew on what that means.
Your your
Um,
takeaway.
my
Okay.
takeaway.
Well, now you've made me think, Haley, about the fine line between being genuine and disingenuine. And I do think it's like I think they're close because I was thinking about senior week. And we've talked, offline about this, just how our schools do. It's not senior week, the last,
Senior nights.
like your son's
Right.
senior night. Thank you. Yes, senior day or whatever. Their last match, right, with their team, and just like all of the, things that people bring to it. And my boss was kind of like, this one felt fake. It was too much. And I was wondering if the students felt that way and if they recognize that. And I put that on one end. And then we have a fellowship of, it's not Christian athletes, that's FCA is very popular, but it's Fellowship of St. Francis athletes. And we have a faculty member who's a sister, and she gave her talk. And it is like, it brings me to tears because she's so genuine, right? And so I don't know if that's like a frequency, but it's a fine line. So you're saying, yeah, these people are doing thankful every day. And like, that's always the question. Who decides? How do you know? Like, if it's, I mean, even in stuff I've written before, I'm like, that's not real. That's not genuine. Like that's saccharine. I mean, we know that I would imagine the goal is to be authentic, right? Is to be have integrity, to be real.
For you and I, that's the goal, or I would like to think
Yeah.
that's the goal, but it's hard to imagine that for some other people that's the goal. But maybe that's just me being judgmental again. I think for some people, and I don't know if it's a generational thing or what, but I think for some people, the goal is to the adulation that they get and the, oh my gosh, that's so great, or oh wow, you look so beautiful, or sometimes some of these Instagram posts, comments I can't even read. Oh, I love you so much. Oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. It's really kind of insane. But maybe what I need to try to do in November is not be so judgmental and to read all of everyone's, displays of gratitude with an open mind and appreciate the fact that maybe they are that grateful. So I don't know. I'd like to think everybody was being sincere, but it doesn't seem like it.
I know, but I mean, okay, so you're saying judgmental, and the other side of that coin is discerning. And I do think it's okay, and I don't know the answer to this. Like, it's like discipline. It's like anything, like, giving the student the benefit of the doubt, or, the young person. I can't tell you how many times I've said, I don't think it was your intention. However, your impact was this, right? And like, always taking the higher road, always giving people the benefit of the doubt. But it's also like, I also need to call you out on this, like, and the fine line of like, when do we say something? When do you not say something? When do you just let it go? I mean, these are the waters parents, right? I mean, navigate every day, teachers, coaches, but it's all pointing towards the same thing. It's something about genuine versus disingenuine, real, authentic versus like, and some people are figuring it out, but I don't know. I think it's worth, but it seems more Lenten than Advent, but maybe there's something in Advent like I could be totally wrong. Maybe it's actually way more Advent, I don't know.
So that's another thing to think about and chew on this week for our takeaways. But it could be more Lenten. But I think there's parts of it we can do in Advent as well. But I hear you, from a discipline standpoint, when I was working as a dean of students, we never judged intent. That was not, we had rules. And if they were, we did not judge the intent of what you were doing. We just judged the action. Now that was also, 20 years ago, and things have changed a lot, certainly with social media and different things, but it's, you're going to get laryngitis. You're going to internalize all that stress. It's a lot to deal with every day, especially dealing with teenagers. But it's, that's a whole different topic, certainly social media and the way it's being used. But I hope people who listen to our podcast know that we are genuine and we try to be honest and, call us out on anything that we get wrong.
That would be,
or mispronounce, or in any way. But certainly we are, I know for sure our intent is to be genuine in everything that we say and we share.
Well, and, I know that is really where prayer is so important, because that's where you're able to, right, kind of come to this place of understanding. Yeah, I mean, God's love and His mercy is overflowing. So I'm not there.
Well, and he doesn't ask us to be, he just asks us to
Yeah,
strive to
yeah,
be.
yeah,
But you're right. That is where prayer comes in. That is where our faith comes in. And, certainly the ultimate act of, forgiveness. And you're right, God's
yeah.
mercy. So
So
we are not there yet, but we are moving
yeah,
towards it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe that'll be part of what our Advent, prayers are about as well. But we have a
yeah.
little while before we get there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, I'll put this question out there for our listeners. So the question in the homily today was, if someone was to describe, or someone that's about was to describe Catholics, what would, how would they describe us? So this is in the Mass. He's like, somebody's outside of church, whatever. How would they describe Catholics? And then he said, how would you describe Catholics? And it is a very important question. And he said, in the first century, the word to describe Christians was, right, loving. Like, you will be convicted of being loving, like, kind. Like, that was because of their acts of love. And so, yeah, that is, I think, something for all of us to think about.
and a good question, yeah, for us to answer next week.
Right?
How would we define Catholic?
Yeah, because the saints are, people who would be convicted of being loving. I mean, they'd be tried
Yes.
and found guilty of being loving.
And are we there yet too?
Yeah.
I don't
Well, we
know.
need them to help us. I mean, that's why we have them, because they help us get there, right? We can pray to them for their intercession. And I know you've been doing that this year. So as
Yes.
you read about them.
I do. And tomorrow is All Saints Day and this All Saints
Yeah,
week.
it's your day, girl.
It is. It is, along with my candy corn.
Yeah. We'll get sexy candy corn, bring it, and we'll pick it up next week. And you'll have 99.9% of your voice.
I will.
Yeah,
Thank
so.
you, Anne. Have a great week, everyone.